Happy Friday. I'm meteorologist Tom Schmidt, and this is Science with Schmidt. All right, we're going to take a look at first is something you don't want to miss in your skies tonight. That's right. We're talking about the grand alignment of planets tonight, all 7 of them. The last time this happened was last year, April 8th, 2024, so not all that impressive. But the next time this is going to happen is a long time from now. We're looking at not until 2040. 15 years from now. Now, the best time to see the grand alignment is at dusk, right after sunset this evening. Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Mars will all be visible without a telescope, but Uranus and Neptune will be more difficult to spot. Saturn will probably be the most difficult for us to see because of its proximity to the sun in our skies. So from our perspective, it'll be right next to the sun, which could just wash it out, the planet, for Saturn. Now, if you don't have a telescope, a pair of binoculars will work just fine. Now, 4 planets will align again October of 2028, just 4 of them, not all 7. And again, all 7 planets not coming together again until the year 2040, long time from now, right? Okay, we're also saying goodbye, winter, and hello, spring. So what are we seeing from this? Well, let's jump in real quick, and we'll take a look at that winter recap for you. So what we saw from December was actually a 3.5 degree warmer month of December. The warmest day we had in December was 63 degrees. Not all that warm. That was right around Christmas time, actually. The coldest was 16 degrees. And then rainfall, we fell about 1/3 of an inch short for rainfall in December. And we didn't see any snow in December, which we typically see about 3 to 3.5 inches of snow in the Ozarks for December. Jumping ahead to January. Boy, did we change things for January. By the way, December was the 19th warmest December on record for us. February kind of flipped the script, right? It was 4.3 degrees colder than normal this February. And, let's not do February. Let's actually talk about January first. Let's go in order here. January was 4.3 degrees colder than normal here for us. The warmest day in January was 64 degrees. Coldest temperature in January was 1 degree. Still short on rainfall, but we made up for it in snowfall. Had a total of 7.6 inches of snow for January in Springfield. That gave us about 3 to 3.5 inches more snow than normal. January 2025 going down as the 32nd coldest January we've seen. All right, now we're talking about February. February was also colder than normal by about 4.8 degrees. The warmest day, hit it twice, was 75 degrees. We may get there again today also. Today is the last day of February. May get back up to 75 today for a 3rd time. Coldest temperature was -12. Very cold air. We had about a 3-week stretch of a colder than normal period for the beginning to the middle parts of February. Also short on rainfall for February, but like January, picked up that moisture in snowfall. 7.8 inches of snow was our total for the month, bringing us up to 4.5 to 5 inches above normal snowfall for the month of February. So all said and done, put it all together, what do you get? Well, average temperature for the meteorological winter season, that's December, January, and February, was 5.5 degrees colder than normal. The warmest was 75 degrees set back February 2nd and February 25th, and possibly again today, February 28th. The coldest was -12 on February 20th. Rainfall, 5.2 inches total, which was short by about 2 inches. And snowfall totals, 15.4 inches in Springfield, meaning we had about 4.5 inches more snow than average this winter season in Springfield. It was the coldest winter in 4 years, since 2020 to 2021. It was also the snowiest winter in 3 years, since 2021-2022. Again, we're saying goodbye, winter, hello, spring, as meteorological winter ends today. Meteorological spring begins tomorrow. All right, so what can we expect for the spring season? Well, the spring outlook, we'll talk with this one first. So spring's right on the corner. Of course, it always asks people the question, well, what are we going to see? Is it going to be a stormy season? Is it not going to be stormy? Is it going to be like last year? Last year was very active for many spots. And while details can't be predicted this far in advance, we are taking a look at some factors that could help give some hints and some guidance on maybe what to expect general trend-wise as we go into spring. All right, so we'll start with the spring outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. And what they say is they're outlining a warmer spring in the southern states and up the East Coast, and a little colder across the Northwest, parts of Washington, Montana, and those states there. And in terms of rainfall and moisture, they're looking at drier conditions to persist across the Southwest. You got to remember, the Southwest is already in extreme to exceptional drought, parts of New Mexico and Arizona, and the Climate Prediction Center is expecting drought to continue, if not worsen, as we go into the spring. Wetter weather, meanwhile, across the Great Lakes and the Midwest regions, including right here in Missouri. So looking at possibly some more rainfall, more moisture coming for us here, Midwest, and off to the eastern states. Florida could also be a little drier. They, too, have seen a bit of a drought this winter. All right, something that seems to always be talked about with seasonal outlooks is the influence of El Nino and La Nina. All right, so this spring, we are coming out of a La Nina and actually into a neutral cycle. Now, this graph here, and that's an important one I'm going to talk about here, so keep this, stick it in your hat, hold it in for later. La Nina springs tend to be more active in the south and Midwest for tornadoes and severe weather. That big purple bullseye on the right side of these two maps, that's your La Nina springtime forecast typically. Your La Nina influence typically see higher counts of tornadoes and hailstorms in the south and the Midwest during a La Nina springtime. Now we're coming out of a La Nina and into a neutral period. So how does that come into play? Well, if we look at what we've seen over the past, we can see that typically in the southern United States, which you'll find probably the most variable in La Nina, El Nino influence in the spring, La Nina springs tend to be more active in the south and Midwest, but neutral springs, again, tend to be near normal, if not just below normal, in terms of how active they are for severe weather and tornadoes and that kind of thing. Part of the reason is the jet stream during a La Nina forecast tends to dip a little farther down south, and that can interact with a lot more of the Gulf moisture. A neutral ENSO cycle is more of, again, near normal to lower than normal in terms of counts of tornadoes and severe weather. Okay, so here's a little table for you. If we look at previous El Nino Southern Oscillation ENSO neutral cycles, if we look at those years, like 2013, 2014, 2017, and 2020, we see that those years were near or just below average for the number of tornadoes in those years, excluding 2017. That's kind of an outlier. And that kind of follows suit with what we're talking about here. So we're going into a neutral spring, potentially. La Nina could be a little slow getting out, but we're forecasted to see a neutral spring in terms of La Nina and El Nino. And typically we'll see severe weather events a little lower, all right, than normal, if not at normal. And take a look at the number. The mean tornado count since 2010 is around 1,400 tornadoes. Well, 2013, 2014 both came in underneath that average, as did 2020. 2017, kind of an outlier, they stuck out. And it's important to remember that El Nino and La Nina is not the only outside factor at play with El Nino and La Nina cycle. It's entirely possible, like I mentioned, that the current La Nina could last a little longer than predicted into the spring. Therefore, it could mean we'll see a near normal to above normal active season in the spring. It's also possible that the active weather pattern we've seen this winter continues into the spring. That's something that could also happen. And also, the Gulf of America, formerly the Gulf of Mexico, is running around 3 to 5 degrees warmer than normal, and that could also increase the amount of moisture in the air to fuel those storms. Now, all that fuel, what you'll see sometimes is if the jet stream is hovering around the Gulf Coast and the southeast, that will maybe prevent some of that fuel from getting a little farther northward into the Midwest, like Iowa, Kansas, and Nebraska and Missouri. But if the jet stream stays a little farther northward, then that'll allow that warmer, moist, and unstable air to keep rising northward and just allow for more opportunities over a larger area to see some impacts of severe weather. All right, so that's kind of the outlook here. I would go for maybe near normal, maybe slightly above normal for this spring outlook here in Missouri. But either way, it doesn't look like it'll be quite as active as last year. That was a record year for here in the country, just about. Only the second most active year for tornadoes, behind 2011, was the year 2024. All right, speaking of severe weather, we do have our first chance of some springtime storms coming as we go into, again, next Tuesday. So, Tuesday, the wind energy is lined up. The jet stream is down south. You can see the strongest part of the jet coming out of Texas into Louisiana. And there's also going to be some instability coming up out of the Gulf. And that instability with that jet stream where it is, the lifting mechanism, if you will, is going to be a bullseye centered for some severe storms across Louisiana, East Texas, Southeast Oklahoma, Eastern Arkansas is kind of the bullseye across Memphis, Little Rock, Monroe to Shreveport, to Jackson, Mississippi, up into just outside Nashville, Tennessee. That's kind of the bullseye. And there may see kind of a slighter isolated risk for severe weather shaded in the yellow. Again, that's kind of the bullseye we're looking at now for Tuesday. I think here in the Ozarks we'll see an isolated severe risk as we go into, again, Tuesday of next week. And something interesting about Tuesday also, there could be some storms that get going in the morning, which could eat up some of that energy left over for the afternoon. So those details usually don't come together until about 2 to 3 days out from the event. So we'll have to keep watching that, see how it lays out. But right now, it does look like, could be some strong to severe storms on Tuesday as we enter the first couple days of meteorological spring. Okay, today's picture of the day. We're going to go ahead and take a look at our good pal, Austin Hamilton. Sent this picture in from Chariton, Iowa. He sends us stuff all the time. And they're usually really good. This one being one of those really good pictures. A beautiful sunset from last evening. And nice weather, not just here across Missouri and Arkansas, but also a big chunk of the country experiencing very, very quiet weather. All right, well, that wraps up today's segment of Science with Schmidt. Did a little winter recap, a spring outlook. Don't forget, the Parade of Planets is happening tonight at dusk. Don't want to miss that. Next opportunity will be until 2040. So do not miss it. Don't forget. Set a reminder if you need to. After sunset at dusk this evening, we'll go outside, look to the west, and you'll have an opportunity to see 4 planets with your naked eye. You can see all 7 of them with a telescope or even a pair of binoculars on the horizon. So exciting stuff happening. Happy Friday. Have a good weekend. And get out, enjoy the nicer weather, and happy springtime beginning tomorrow.